Welcome to the 2021 Annual Meetings Governor Talk Series. I am Jihad Azour, Director of the Middle East and Central Asia Department of the IMF. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Ibrahim, Minister of Finance of Sudan. Dr. Ibrahim, thank you for joining us. First, congratulations on Sudan's achievement in reaching the decision point in record time, notwithstanding the challenging social and economic environment. And I would like to also commend the Sudan's government for your unwavering commitment to reforms. And let me now ask you my first question. What were the key factors that contributed to Sudan's success despite the various shocks and pressures that you have faced during a fragile context?
Thank you, Mr. Jihad. I am grateful to you and to the MCD for availing me this opportunity to share the experiences, our experiences in Sudan in reaching the epic decision point. I believe I share this point with some humility because the story continues to unfold. We do not know the ultimate impact, and the way forward remains challenging. However, these are some of the points. One, the most important factor that contributed to our success is political will and the determination of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance to undertake bold yet risky reforms and the alignment in the common understanding of what was required to address the economic challenges facing Sudan. Two, a strong and sound communication strategy with the public with regards to the implications of what the reforms entail for the masses as we address the economic, social, and financial crisis we are facing and the need to break away from this past. Three, the removal of Sudan from the U.S. state-sponsored list of terrorism cleared the way for the reintegration of Sudan into the international community. These are the main key factors. Another success factor was the unwavering support of the international community for the Sudanese revolution. This was manifested by the high-level visits of dignitaries to Sudan, including the President of the Federal Republic of Germany, several foreign ministers, and ministers of international cooperation. This was further consolidated through the support of the Friends of Sudan, the conferences held in Berlin, Saudi Arabia, and France. This support led to the funding for the Sudan Family Support Program, which was a mitigating measure for the adverse effects of the reforms. The government counts on the support of the international community in its economic and financial reform program as it seeks to move from economic stabilization to broad-based and inclusive growth. The fifth, the support of the multinational institutions in clearing Sudan's arrears provided a strong justification for the economic reforms and the signal that the international community would support Sudan further. And finally, the Juba Peace Agreement created hope for a new and inclusive Sudan and elevated the credibility of the transitional government that also provided the legitimacy to undertake these difficult but necessary decisions.
Thank you, Minister. What are the prospects of the Sudanese economy? Where do you see opportunities, and what are the key challenges that your government is facing today?
Thank you. I believe that the prospects for Sudan's economy are bright, despite the huge challenges we face. That's so because, one, Sudan is naturally wealthy country. Sudan has 10% of the world's available arable land. has over 120 million heads of livestock,
I hear nothing.
among the largest livestock resources in Africa.
It's
Large mineral deposits, and 80% of its land can generate high levels of renewable energy. Sudan also has a vibrant, young, appropriately educated generation that's keen to continue to learn and contribute to the new Sudan. Second, the Sudanese community has also started to gain confidence in our policies. Our reforms have begun to bear fruit. Inflation slowed in August by 35%.
Now I hear.
Our currency has stabilized. Our trade deficit declined to 1.2 billion US dollars in the first half of 2021, compared to 2.1 billion the first half of 2020. Non-oil exports are higher. Remittances increased from 136 million US dollars the first half of 2020 to 717 million the first half of 2021. And bank deposits and financing are increasing. We expect to return to growth this year, near 1% of our GDP, and for economic growth to expand gradually in coming years. It is also expected that the current account will be supported by foreign direct investment, portfolio investments, remittances through official channels, and external commercial borrowing following the exchange rate unification policy. As economic stability takes hold, we are focusing on increasing productivity and encouraging the private sector. 3, there is also enormous interest from the regional and international business community that are keen to invest in Sudan, and this provides opportunities for economic growth. For the continued support of the multinationals and their financial inflows are providing a good foundation for economic growth and addressing the enablers for investment, particularly energy, infrastructure, financial sector, and the like. Fifth, however, the legacy of the mismanagement and the years of isolation present significant challenges for our continued progress in our economic reform agenda. For example, removing the remaining subsidies that continue to distort the economy and the political costs this entails. Our ability to provide a social safety network to mitigate the negative effects of the reforms also is hampered by the lack of data and underdeveloped payment systems, poor telecom infrastructure, and the weak banking sector. In addition to that, we need to make progress on economic governance, including ensuring that state enterprises are under the transparent governance of the civilian state. We also need to rebuild an effective civil service focused on results, rebuild our infrastructure, social services, and financial sector, and develop the long-neglected, marginalized parts of Sudan. We also need to improve our investment climate to make investment attractive. Another key challenge has been that many international banks have not yet established correspondent banking relationships with Sudanese banks despite the reforms and the removal of sanctions and related restrictions. We are working hard to strengthen AML CFT compliance and strengthen the banking sector. And perhaps, Jihad, this challenge is for the IMF in that I find the ECF constrains us in being able to address many of these challenges I have highlighted above. Finally, we need to convince the non-Paris Club creditors, as well as the commercial creditors, to restructure their debts on terms comparable to those of the Paris Club creditors.
Thank you, Minister. Let me build on what you just said. What is the additional role Sudan's development partners and other IFIs, including the IMF, could play to help you implement your transformational reform agenda and build greater economic resilience at this moment?
Thank you. Successful implementation of the ECF is one major requirement for Sudan to reach the completion point under the HIPC initiative. But let me go directly to answer your question. The government counts on the support of the international community in its economic and financial reform program as it seeks to move from economic stabilization to broad-based, inclusive growth. The country's ultimate intended objective is to improve the lives of the Sudanese people. The World Bank has paved the way for IDA grants worth close to $3 billion that are instrumental in Sudan's economic stabilization and development. And the IFC is beginning to identify private sector projects to invest in. The EFC and HIPC framework impose stringent limits on external finance. And for this reason, and since Sudan has not benefited from IDA or IMF financing for decades, we need special consideration during the transitional period to help finance the crucial investments we need to make and succeed in this transition.
Let's take the successful case of Sudan. And for you, what are the key lessons that Sudan experience can give to other fragile states?
The successful case of Sudan, of course, I say this with a bit of humility, but let's say the lessons we learned from this. One, blanket subsidies are detrimental to the growing economies, and they are always in favor of the rich at the expense of the poor. With a direct and frank communication strategy, the public will accept the lifting of subsidies and the removal of distortions in the macroeconomy. Ahead of making painful reforms, governments need to make necessary arrangements for the vulnerable population who are likely to be the most adversely affected. In many respects, the case of Sudan is quite unique, as it is a country that was isolated from the international community and development assistance for more than 30 years. In this period, there have been many lost opportunities. The cost of this isolation can be seen in accumulation of Sudan's external debt that ballooned from around $12 billion in the early 1990s to more than $60 billion due to accumulated interest and penalties. Yet Sudan's post-revolution experience offers valuable lessons in the kind of positive impact the international community and development partners would have in FCS countries when they work collaboratively and with a sense of agency. From our experience, the support of the international community is critical for FCS countries that face a multitude of economic and political challenges. This support is even crucial in the face of global pandemic. In terms of lessons learned, I believe the international community can support fragile states in 5 key areas. One, first, strong cooperation and collaboration with the government and among the development partners to ensure consistency in the approach to resolving issues where efforts can be complementary. Two, acting with the sense of urgency in a time of crisis, as risks are inherently high for FCS. Having strong teams representing the international organizations that understand the country context and being able to respond to the country needs is essential. Three, flexibility is necessary as business as usual in countries with weak institutions simply won't work. This also includes developing suitable funding instruments tailored to the specific circumstances and needs of the FCS. Four, prioritizing and supporting the building of state institutions and institutional capacity in government in the FCS to improve the absorptive capacity of development assistance in the FCS. And finally, providing rapid support to cope with exogenous shocks such as the COVID-19 pandemic and locusts and other calamities. The recent IMF SDR increase is an extremely important initiative for Africa and a lifeline for FCS countries. Thank you.
Dr. Ibrahim, thank you very much for your time today and thank you for your insightful comments. Also, I would like to thank everyone for joining us. From the IMF in Washington, I wish you a very good day.
Thank you very much.